unless there's a reason, usually health reason or some other disease reason, they can't euthanize it. That cat, if it's taken and found and sent back down to the animal shelter, has to be put back in that community. It's been neutered or spayed, and it's put back in that community. And so that creates a little bit of a challenge,
Yeah.
okay? If you're collecting, you've got these cats and a bunch of cats, and people saying, well, they're cumbersome, because if our animal control people pick it up, and it's one of those community cats, they can't take it down there, and go down there, and then it's gonna come right back, because it has to go back in the community. So it's just an interesting, and the law specifically states that, so if your daughter would
Yeah.
like to have some insight in terms of those kind of laws,
Yeah.
I'll send it to you, because I look
Okay.
at those.
Okay,
But the one in terms of declawing, I wasn't aware
yeah,
of.
yeah, she just has shown me all this evidence of how
Thank you.
you might as well just kill the cat.
Sound like you might be
They
pouring
just become,
on a water bottle.
No,
I mean,
I'd
people
give up
declaw them
trying.
because they don't want them to touch their
So did
furniture.
I.
And then it just
But-
changes the whole personality, they start biting, be aggressive, they have no way to defend themselves, and they've shown where
28
they,
years.
you know, put claws back on them, I
Good
think
for
she
you.
said. Anyway, they become a whole different cat. I mean,
Nobody
she
likes
just-
a quitter,
she
but I
just loves
decided to
cats.
do
I
it.
think cats my
Bryce
whole
still
life,
wanted
and
to.
then
He's got
she
two of
adopted
those.
cats,
No,
and
I can go get
cats.
one.
Every
Looks
time
like
we
you
go to
got
the
your,
hospital, Grandma,
do you
goodbye.
want
I'm
one?
like, oh, hell, Grandma took the damn cats.
Sure. But if you need it, I
But
can
yeah,
just
I
go
like
get a
your
red cup.
response too.
That's what I usually do.
Well, Morgan handed me a red cup, but it already had
I was
water in
reading
it.
that,
I'm
I'm
like, I don't know where this come from, so I texted Matt and
Yeah,
said,
so you did a
I'll
great
skip
job there.
that. Hey, if we still
Let me
have,
get some information,
to
though,
that
but
pot.
those
the laptop,
organizations
I'll have all the
are founded organizations. If you can get them organizations to recognize the problem and use their clout, that'll make a difference. If
Right.
not, we go local. Local means we get a
Because we talked
representative.
about Greg Buxton,
Yeah.
and I've known him
I didn't
since
realize
his
it was a
kids were
different
little. I
company.
know
I'm like,
his
where's the
family,
flag?
and I know him. He donated towards my campaign, so I could corner him too.
Well, the Buxton or
knew her
Schultz or
Yeah.
Nelson.
How
Yeah,
are
the
you?
only way I'm gonna get Schultz to respond to me is if I text his wife and say, tell your husband
Let's
to
change
quit
over
ignoring
in
me
about
and to
2
call me. And then she'll say,
Mike, did you not see Aunt Texas text?
Well, there you go.
dude, I slammed it in my gun safe.
We were supposed to go live, and so,
Oh,
My gun safe.
are we live now? Morgan?
My
Are we
gun
live?
safe's 6.5
don't know.
4 foot wide, 3 foot deep.
Yeah.
Did Mark tell
Yes,
you we're live?
we are.
Okay,
It
so
weighs 14.
we're live, and we've been live carrying on with conversations.
And I
Just
slammed
be
it
aware.
over. I didn't realize this whole thing
We're
was
still
side
2
of it.
minutes out.
and you got a pile of papers, don't you?
We're 1 minute out.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Royce City Council Working Session for July 20th, 2021. The meeting is starting at 4:30. We are at the Royce City Council Chambers. Want to welcome everybody. Want to do a roll call. We have Councilmember Paul here, Councilmember Saxton, Councilmember Wilson, and Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Burrell has been excused. Now, the discussion items were the proposed mixed use of the Front Runner Station and Innovation Center areas. So with that, Steve, let's go ahead and kind of begin where we left off. Okay?
Morgan, can you? Well, from where we left off, it was a big conversation and a few emails have come since, so I've kind of gone through those and kind of modified the use tables, the building type tables, and a few things that within the building, the setbacks and stuff like that requirements. So on the screen, you'll see and one of the biggest changes is every time I have something new, was in blue, and then all of a sudden we would change something, it was still in blue, and kind of got difficult. I don't know from your end, from my end, it's like, okay, what was new that I changed from last time that wasn't before? So what I did is just made everything black bolded is the proposed, and any minor changes are now in blue.
Okay,
And then next time, if we have some different changes, then we'll just make those in blue and so on. So here on this table, it was more of removing some of those uses within the two Station North and Station South, because it was more concerned that keeping it more residential. The way it was before, you could have some commercial within that, and that's not necessarily what we were wanting. Making it strictly just residential in use and in nature was the intent of this. So, and then looking at it from a standpoint is, would police and fire ever have a station in those two areas? No. The police department may have a small station there at the Front Runner Station, just, if your bike got stolen or something, they can have that. I know in other police departments, there's a little office that, an officer may sit in there. So leaving it in the central would be fine, or in the business park. Same with civic uses. Would the city ever have a building in those? No. Again, they might in the central or in the business park. So leaving those kind of things in those zones. The next one, building type. I hope I forgot to cross them out, but it was again civic buildings in the north and south would just be removed, leaving the table pretty much the way it was, except for allowing row homes in the business park. Now, there's a caveat that we'll get to in row homes of why that is and where that can be.
okay,
It was very limited in where it could be. So storefront, not a lot of changes occurred except for in Central and Business Park, and I apologize, it is hard to see because they're footnotes in the table itself, but if you look down at the bottom of the table, it's footnote number 6 and footnote number 7. So 6, because there was a comment of having a maximum density within the central of 25 units per acre. So within the overall building height, even though it's not necessarily building height, it was the best place to put it. So 6 under central, maximum building height, footnote number 6, maximum unit or height, and then business park under maximum overall building height number 7, building type not allowed along 4200 South. So you wouldn't be able to have commercial along that residential road that has residents across the street. So in your email, it was more of that little buffer.
yeah.
Type
So what
zone.
was so what would be able to go in there?
Well, it wouldn't be able to be a storefront. It's all,
A storefront, okay.
it wouldn't be able to be.
It would not be storefront.
Right.
Okay.
I'll get to that in a sec, but it's
Okay.
more of the row homes.
Perfect, okay,
So going to the general stoop type buildings, very similar. Again, it's hard to see, but it's 7, 8, 9, and 10 are the footnotes. Again, maximum density of 25 in the central, maximum density of 18 in the south. In the north, this is where I put that distance change of height from 60 to 50. Trying to figure out exactly where that line of demarcation was through our conversation. It was about 1,060 feet. I just rounded up to 1,100 south of Hinckley. So they'll just take Hinckley Drive and at 1,100 feet that south, that's where the change is. Anything south of that line is 50 feet, anything north is 60.
okay,
So I kind of took what we did with the 1900 west, 100 feet back of curb, has to be 60. After that, it can be 80. So kind of taking a similar note there. And again, under business park, footnote number 10 is that building type is not allowed along 4200 South. So again, trying to eliminate commercial type uses across the street from residential.
Okay,
The Civic, as mentioned within the building types, just eliminating Civic as an option within the south and the north, leaving it in the central and the business park. Footnote number 5 in the central, or that shouldn't be there because the central does not go to the north.
yeah,
So excuse
Central
me.
Station, Central
would've
doesn't
been-
go
yeah,
that far,
so-
just be,
That should have been a 25 unit, but again, we're not talking about residential there. So disregard footnote number 5. So
I
this,
see.
footnote number 6 would just change to 5, and it would just, again, maximum building height along 42 is 35, keeping it similar heights with what's across the street.
yep. Okay,
And then row buildings, in the table, the biggest change again is just those footnotes of 25 units per acre in the central, 18 units per acre in the south, 1,100 feet, and then the change to 50 feet, and then maximum height along 4200 south is 35 feet for a row home.
yep. Okay. Okay, those are obviously the things we talked about. Council, comments, questions? Any adjustments, anything else you want to put into the discussion then?
Do you have a map that you can pull up? See if I can pull it up. 4200 South.
Like an aerial?
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be, I look at the way to get into the park, the George Wallen North Park, off of 1900 rather than going down to 4,000.
I was just trying to see where you say maximum building height along 4200 South is 35 feet.
Yeah, he can show you right there.
So where, say, Councilman Paul, say America First decides that their parking lot is no longer needed and they want to change it and modify it. So if you look at the screen, along 4200 South here where my little marker is, to protect those residents to the south,
Yep.
it would only be 35 feet tall, more residential in nature. The park, unless the city decides to sell, which would be you guys, I mean, we could continue on through, but we removed that from the zoning map, which I apologize, I forgot to include.
So we're just going to take the park out and we'll take the school and the library out, correct?
Yeah, so everything, the school, library, and park was removed from that business park, leaving America First and their campus, their parking lot, and then the airport area.
Right,
And then 42 was being more protected because of the residents.
right.
Well, and in the business park, can we really get away with 80 feet knowing that that's airport?
Because they're more concerned with takeoffs than what's to the side of them.
Yeah, when we run the numbers, it's 1 foot per 7 feet. So if you take a measurement from the center of the runway, according to the FAA requirements, and you take it all the way out to where those buildings are, then for every 7 feet, you can actually go up 1 foot, I believe is what the policy reads,
So what is it from the center of the runway to the edge of the airport property?
right there.
713 feet? Approximately?
Now go to the middle of the buildings. When you look at that, you'll start to see
So you're 900 from that one building.
So you're about right.
So when we looked at it and we measured it using the same mechanism, it literally allowed it to get the height, particularly on some of those, could be a lot higher, but who would want them higher?
Yeah.
So the 80 feet would be within that requirement.
While we're talking business park, I was wondering on the other side of the Iomega America First area on 4,000, I was wondering about a buffer strip there because we do have a lot of homes there and maybe have that same sort of 35-foot buffer strip. And then that area that's between the tallest buildings there, when I measured it, were 42 feet high, as opposed to having 80 foot right there in the middle of where the school and, you know, residents wouldn't be exactly there if we have the buffer foot, but maybe keep that to a 50 or 60 foot, and then keep everything on the east of 1900, you know, go ahead for the 80 foot, but maybe keep that area a little calmer for the people that live there.
What if you said 60 on the west, other than your buffer, and 80 on the east?
I think that, I believe, is what the current zoning is right now, is 60 foot. So that would be, I think, very feasible, because that way you're just making it fit a little bit better in that residential area, as opposed to allowing 80 feet. And then that buffer zone off 40,000, just do it this symmetrical, basically, to the one off 4,200 because of all the homes that are still there.
Well, the school's out and the library's out, right? So
Yep.
we're-
Right.
Well, okay, council comment? I think you got two options on the table. One would be is just, with the exception of the piece that's on the south end where that parking lot is, which he talked about, which he says keep that buffer 35 feet. You got two options on the table. Everything else north of there, up to 4,000, change it to 60 feet instead of 80 feet, or change it to 60 feet and then put another buffer, looks like on the back side to the west of the main credit union building, that parking lot.
I think she's talking more on the north along 4,000 rather than the west.
Well, it's west of the building, the main building right there, but yes, that area where you're,
Yeah, that, right, that
that
north
area,
area.
which means that particular piece right there, and I guess a buffer would be 100 feet, 200 feet. What's a buffer?
So what's the buffer that you have measured right here, Mayor, on that?
Well, it was
on
just,
this?
I
What's the
didn't-
buffer that's right there?
Yeah, I didn't measure a buffer.
she just stated you couldn't put anything over 35 feet
Along
along
there?
that edge.
Okay, so
Could be
you
as
could do
deep
the same
as the
thing.
row home it is, and,
Sure.
or if
I
you
think
want to
that's a
do
good way to
a
write it.
buffer of 50 feet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Comments?
I think that sounds good to me. 35
Because-
feet,
I
and-
just looking, there's already, I mean, if you look over there, there's basically, you've got a gas station, and there's already a buffer, for the most part, on the trailer park.
And what's that buffer?
Well, it's right along here. There's nothing, because that's a cul-de-sac, there's nothing in between this street and the, so you got a gas station right there.
Yep.
And then you've got that big strip right there.
The
Well-
building's about 40 foot high that's there presently.
But maybe another conversation would be is that on that street, personally, I'm not so sure you're going to get any building in there, unless you decide to tear that three-story building down.
Well, and that street's a lot bigger than, by virtue of that street being wider, that's a lot wider than that street anyway.
Yeah, that's more
I'm
of
not
a,
as fussed about the 35-foot buffer on the north side as I would be on the south side. But
well, let's fix this. What do you want it to be? Because he's ready to finish this portion of it.
I'd
So-
say 60 feet other than on
Do you
the
want to
south
put a
side.
setback off that road so that no building can go in there for so many feet? Will that satisfy the buffer?
So
Because,
that would be like a 20-foot, 30-foot setback sort of thing?
yeah,
I think that's reasonable. I think that sounds
because that's
good.
really what you're referring to, is you just don't want
Right.
something up against the road edge right
Right.
there that's going to be 80 feet
Yeah.
tall.
And then 80 feet on the east side of.
Right.
1900.
It's
And
not
then-
80 feet, we're saying 60 feet.
But, I mean, on the east side, she said of 1900. Yeah, I think that's good. But on the west side, keep it at 60. I think that sounds good.
Comments?
I think that's a good suggestion, Mayor.
Okay, so here's what I think we got out of that. Leave the buffer on the south end where the parking lot is, as you stated. And then we'll just put a 30-foot buffer, Steve, anything that comes in that business park from 4,000. And then we change it from 80 feet to 60 feet. Is that what I heard?
I think that sounds good. Thank you.
My problem with the setback is you're creating 30 feet of wasted space. That's a lot of property you're taking away
Understand.
that's buildable.
I understand.
That road's already wider by virtue, and you got a gas station, you've already got a pretty big buffer across the street.
When that road is widened, how much would possibly be taken out of that road if it's widened? Because someday, somewhere, that traffic is probably going to happen.
That'd be a question for the engineer, and what, I mean, right now it's already a 66-foot right-of-way. The next step would be 84.
Right.
But then you're
Oh,
taking.
84, okay.
Depending on which side of the road you take, is it both or all on one side? It would depend, again, what you do.
That's
So
a
it's
66
kind of
foot,
hard
what's
to,
4,200 south?
huh?
What's 4,200 south?
I'd probably say 60.
I think the comment would be is that
But don't quote me on
given the
any of it.
development of what's happening in West Haven on 4,000 below Midland, and that is a 5-lane freeway that has about 10,000 cars a day on it, interesting enough. The only way, in my opinion, you can make that work would be the council would have to agree to consider giving 4,000 to UDOT. Because the cost of going in and acquiring that land, I don't think Roy City has that kind of a budget. But cities do that, and if UDOT was to take that and widen it, because it's exactly what they did below Midland when it was in West Haven, that's a UDOT road now. That could basically, it would give a thoroughfare all the way down, and the talk is that road is actually going to hit the I-215 interchange that's going to eventually make it through bottom of Weaver County. It'll be a main one. Interesting, if they do that, then it will be a main one all the way to 1900. If that was to be widened, UDOT would have to pay that bill. We couldn't.
But because of the school, they'd probably just do the north side of 4,000.
But UDOT has been known, we've talked to them before, and they will zigzag, whatever's cost effective. I think what you're suggesting is that if we're looking for the long term, that would be the long-term idea if you wanted to widen it. Then it's going to 80 feet, which means you got that 30-foot buffer in there. Yes, Hinckley was that diversion, and
Hinckley is
interesting
that
enough,
diversion.
I've looked at actually UDOT's actual numbers on 4,000, and year after year, their numbers are showing increasing, even increasing after Hinckley was put in. So a lot of people are still using
Well, because you have the
4,000.
train station right there. The problem
Exactly.
is all they did was push traffic through a funnel.
Oh,
Because
that's
you're
exa-
running
that's right.
a bazillion feet wide up to Midland, and then you just about pinched it off.
Right.
And I know people are saying use a diversion, but there's still a ton of traffic going up and down 4,000.
Oh, it is. It's terrible. Okay, so Steve needs some directions of what you want to do. You got two options on the table. One is leave it at 60 feet, change it 60 feet from 80 feet, and then do you want to put a buffer on that north end where that parking lot is?
I think that when we look ahead, that's a helpful thing. First of all, I don't believe that there's going to be immediate building there, but if there is, that way the building wouldn't be put in and then possibly in, I don't know what the time frame would be in the future, but it's pretty sure that something's going to have to go there eventually for widening, I would think, because of the traffic that's there. So how about a 25-foot instead of 30? Is that, because that would still give us, if it goes from 66 to 84, if they chose to take some of it out of there, that would take enough of it and you'd still have a little, or is 30 foot a better setback for there? What's the current setback on that zoning?
20.
20?
Why don't we stay with
So they have to,
stay with
pull
20?
back 20 feet no matter what, right?
Okay,
Already
let's stay with
20
20.
setback. I'd say leave it at 20.
let's
Yeah,
stay
let's leave it
with
at 20.
The road's already 6 foot wider than the one on the other side.
Sounds good.
And then I wouldn't
20 foot.
do, I wouldn't do any more different setback on the east side, but I would go 60 west, 80 on the east.
Okay, everybody okay with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. You'll make that so. We'll look for that in our next meeting. Okay, What else we want to chat about?
Well, I'll jump in regards to, one of the things that I thought is important is to look at the slope and the height for the Station Central and the station, quite steep there. And I was to Steve about that, and there's a concern in regards to having rear loading buildings there. Remove that from the code, because right now row houses are only in this area for right now, but allow front or rear loading or side loading, because if you mandate rear loading on some of those very steep hills, it would be very difficult for builders and developers to be able to drive in. If you've got a 3-story building, like there's a basement, a first floor and a second floor, and you're still trying to come around with a rear loading. The other thing is that green strip that is above, which is east of the blue strip for UTA property, that's only around 113 to 125 feet. And so to have a building there and still try to facilitate rear loading might be difficult. So I would propose that we just not mandate if it's rear, side, or front loading, and let the developer decide what works best with what they design.
You need to clarify exactly what all that meant, because I need to see it visually on the chart.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah. Yeah, what she's saying is because of what, we kind of kept the same stuff that was going on with downtown, is to keep parking and stuff from the side or the rear. Where she's saying if it's topography-wise, I have a building, say there's a private road in the middle. Of course, the rear, depending on which way the front of the house is, right now it just says rear only. So how do we approach it? Maybe they have the front facing the private road, and the ordinance wouldn't allow for front driveways or front garages. They'd all have to be from the back. So just allowing the front parking as well as rear and side gives the developer an option of how to do it. So it would be, let me,
So if you look at parking and loading location for row building and general stoop, if general stoop remains in those areas, you would just delete it, take that out,
I'd
or
just
just
add in
allow
front.
rear, side, and front.
so we just add in the word front.
Just make it front only?
Well, front, rear,
As
and
a-
side.
Front, rear, or
Allow the
Allowance
options
so they
open.
could,
Okay.
Right.
We're
Because of that steep slope, it's going to, I think, help a lot in regards to that.
Yeah, also, I think in that particular area, is that not where there's gonna have to be a road put in? Because you're gonna need a second access into that.
Currently, there's a road that is between, it's the fire access road between the green and the blue on the UTA property.
Uh-huh.
And so that kind of leads into the next topic that I thought would be interesting is, what if we measure from a specific point, like saying 60 foot from the tracks? Because, Morgan, if you could go onto the Google Earth Pro map and look at that 3D thing, I'll just show you how that works. So what happens is, the way it's written now, you can have 60 foot high from any point, depending on what that is. And so 60 foot high at the top of that slope versus 60 foot high at the tracks, and so there are several different ways to decide where 60 foot is from. Right now, it's just very variable, but if we had it so it was more set, then that would, I think, be beneficial. And if you take a look at let's see, picture number, take a look at the fifth picture. If you look at the overview of the Station Central, that particular has been diagrammed, and it looks like this. It's the fifth one. That diagram has been done so the height maximum of the blue area, which is 60 foot, is right there at that road. and the height maximum for the green, which is 35 foot, is at the top of the hill. So it kind of shows you what the height would be. So Morgan, if you can kind of zoom into the difference between the blue and the green area and the UTA property.
So
But this
wouldn't the height
picture doesn't.
maximum be at, well, I don't know how you write that.
Well,
Height maximum to me would be at the top of the hill, not the bottom of the hill.
It depends on where you pick the point. So if you say 30, so the way it's drawn right now, in fact, if you look at the second photo like this gives you a better idea of what it looks like. If you look at the one, it says going north on 2450,
So this is 35 feet right here.
that's correct. 35 feet is,
Green.
is the green at the road.
Front or the back?
On the road side, because the back side, we have to have a step. We have a graduated step because it's next to residential. So if you take a look at that, the maximum 35 foot is measured from the top of the slope. And the maximum 60 foot on the blue is measured from the top of the slope. And so what that allows is if they choose to backfill or have their measurement at their main area be the top of the slope, that means you could have a very, very tall building next to the tracks.
And tall would be how tall?
Let me see,
Whatever the drop is.
whatever the drop is,
But I
and
mean,
the
what's
drop
maximum
is,
height of the houses that back up to that, Steve?
37.
well, it
The
doesn't
max
have a
they can be is 37.
The street view doesn't work, so don't,
so if the, right at some of those areas, the drop is anywhere from 30 to 50 foot on the topographical map, if you're taking a look at some of those areas.
I'm not as much worried about the downhill slope as I am the uphill slope. So if we do 35 feet on the uphill slope, what does that do to the backyards of those houses?
That's what it shows right now. If you do 35 foot if you use 35 foot at the top level of the slope, that's what is diagrammed on green. That's what's diagrammed.
Steve, here's my concern. First thing is that from that existing road to the back slope of where that is, there's not a lot of distance there. And you got setbacks on the back side of that, and you got setbacks on the front side of that. I'm not sure, but the way it looks right now, there can't be more than maybe 30 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet in the middle where you can build a house, because you have to meet the setbacks in the front and the setbacks in the back.
well,
Take a look at the house that's just right there. We're using that as an example.
you're gonna have to meet the setbacks from property line.
Yeah.
Because if this is a private road, are we concerned with how close it is to the road?
Well, but all I'm concerned about would be is to make
Right
sure
now,
that there's
it's not
a
even a
secondary
dedicated
access.
road. So it's a private access point.
So
How
if
UTA
you,
develops their site is unknown to me, because I'm not a developer, nor am I UTA.
No, but I'm looking, see, my
mean, and you
concern's gonna
wanna
be is,
access it.
Steve, look at the illustration, since everybody's focused on the illustration. My concern is there's not enough room to put a house in there.
so that's about 113 to 125 foot depth average in that green strip when you measure it. And so if you use a row house building or a general stoop building, the rear setback is 5 foot is all. So it's drawn as a 5 foot setback right now. But you still have to, because it's next to residential, you have to go at, I believe it's like 25 foot. That's why it steps up higher on that picture. But the maximum height goes from the top of the slope, the way it's diagrammed now. The front setback, the way it's currently written, is 0 to 15 feet. So I believe that even if you take out maximum 15 and 5, that's 20, subtract 20 from 113 feet of that width, now we're looking at 95 foot, which I think is still,
You could build a house
you
on
can still
95.
build a house on that.
Yeah. And those houses would be row houses. We're not putting single family. The only thing that's authorized there is row houses, correct?
Well, it's residential, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
so that's why I'm thinking it would be very important for us to specifically identify the height. And so maybe say from what the elevation of that Fire Road, which is a private road right now, you could say 35 feet high from that point, and then say 60 foot high from the level of the tracks. That way, it allows a specific point that we're measuring height from, and it keeps it pretty consistent.
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
That assisted living facility that's on the north side of
Yes.
this? Is there a huge issue between the west and east side of it?
That's what I envisioned going along.
Because the
right
east
there,
side
that same type of-
is measured, according to the building code, from finished grade is 35 feet. The west side, it does encompass another one because of the parking.
But where are you gonna have
Like-
finished grade? So I think that's what the question is, where do we want to ask them to do finished grade? Because they could do finished grade. So what that shows is the extreme of where finished grade could be.
It'd be hard to say, identify exactly where finished
Right.
grade is, because this may all be fill dirt and not construction, and they have to remove it all and bring it back. Until
Exactly.
you get a geotech report, you're asking, we're designing stuff that we're not even designing, designers, trying to tell them this is what finished grade is going to be, when it may be 5 feet lower or need to be 5 feet higher. It's hard to say.
I would almost say maximum height from edge of property line,
Which edge?
Well, building
Because
code
right
says
now-
finished grade.
eastern edge.
Because, and so that's the way it's drawn right now, 60 foot high at the eastern edge of the property line is the way that is diagrammed.
Okay, and,
Thought it
and,
was 35 feet.
and is that a
That's on the
problem?
blue, you're talking about the blue.
So I'm looking at green. What is the maximum height of the east edge of the property line?
On the green,
35 feet.
35 feet, and that's on the east edge, that's taking it from the east edge, that's the diagram.
And see, that's how I would leave it.
Well, let me ask you this question.
35 feet on both sides of the property line right there.
Today, it's an R18. All of that is R18. How high can the building be on an R18 at that location?
35 feet, finished grade.
Okay. So we're not changing anything, except the fact is that it's 35 feet.
We're just saying where to measure it, because that slope is quite steep. In fact, there's probably about a 20 to 30 foot drop along that area, depending on when, from the east side to the west side of the green strip.
Okay, so what do you want to do? Let's ask the question. How tall do you want it?
Vision of that right there is like what's on the north side of that road.
Say that again, please.
My vision of that right there
Mm-hmm.
is what is on the east, or the north side of that road.
That, the senior apartment,
You're referring to the blue.
No, I'm referring to the green.
Is the green, first thing is that building, it's on it's on the north end of this, on 4,000, at that assisted living, or excuse me, it's a senior living facility, is higher than 37 feet.
It's 35 feet to the top of the,
Feet from the top of.
From the top,
So if you look at the eastern side of that, it's 35 feet from grade to top of building. But then as you come down the hill, it gets a
Yeah.
lot, topside max.
Yeah.
But as you come down, at that point, we don't care what the height is coming down. You're just setting the height on the eastern property
Okay.
line.
But
well,
if
that's a 3-story build, that's actually a 4-story because they put the garage in the basement. Is that what you're basically saying, council, you would like in the green space?
I don't believe so, and because,
Well, it's only 37 feet.
but
you're
it's
not
from
gonna
a
get the
different grade
exact same,
area.
I mean, we're designing a product that hasn't even been designed.
I know, that's what
We're
I mean,
trying to
all
be
I'm saying is that
designers.
I don't think there's gonna be people, considering what we went through at the library, that would like that. I think they would like a 35-foot building if there's gonna be as a buffer between that and the 60-foot that we propose you authorize at the train station. That's gonna be that, but that building is a 4-story building.
I believe that's
On the
why,
front side, the back side that's facing the house is not 4 stories.
Well,
but it's also not from the east side of the property line. That comes down a little ways, and so luckily that turned out nice, because the east side of the property line is probably 10 or 15 foot higher. But right now, we're trying to make something that looks into the future and says, well, we want it to be 35 foot from some point, whether that finished grade point is the middle of the green strip or the front of the green strip. It's just that I believe it's too high to allow that to be at the back, the east edge of that property line. And I believe 60 foot on the east side of the blue district is too high for that. Even though it's not likely it would be exactly 60 foot from the east side, it could be because the front they don't care about and they could have extra stories or extra levels down there. And I think that's why, looking ahead, because this is different, this property is different with that slope.
Okay. Any other comments? I, for one, am getting, this is going to be so confusing that why would anybody want to do anything with this property? I mean, you're going to basically go up there and you're going to say, well, it has to be this dimension, and from this parking lot space, it's got to be 35. I'm sitting there trying to figure out exactly what is really the intent of the council. I guess the question is, do you want any development at this location? Yes or no?
If they want it, that's fine.
Okay, so we want some development, okay? Now, the key is going to be from where the parking lot is, everything to the east of that parking lot, we agreed is 37 feet. 35 feet. So that area is 35 feet. Everything that is on the west by the parking area, and that piece is up there in that little circle up there to the north, all of that was being considered to be 60 feet. I
Yes.
don't know how you would write this, okay, in any type of a statute or ordinance that's going to fundamentally be able to make a distinction between where the start point is and where the end point is.
So the ones that I've looked up in other cities, they have it as a set point. They have it as 60 foot from, if we want to put that, the tracks, 60 foot high from the tracks.
Okay.
Or we say 35 foot high from the
Road.
The road.
Perfect.
And so that's
Do
why
that.
it makes it very easy.
Then do that, and I think that's fine. And if they cut back into that hill, then they cut back into the hill.
Right.
But just make it, and then a developer can come in and says, yeah, I can either put a 60-foot thing at this location or a 35-foot at this location and call it a day. But I'm confused, and if I'm confused, and I understand a little bit about planning, I'm not so sure what the people who are listening to this thing is thinking, and more importantly, I'm not sure exactly what a developer would be able to do. The stuff in the blue is 60 feet at the train level. Fine, call it a day.
Okay.
Everything that's in green is 35 feet at the road. Done.
Okay, sounds great.
Is that workable?
Yep, it sounds very good.
Now, we still have not talked about the buffer between those houses that are sitting right there next to the blue. If there's going to be an issue, the issue won't come from everybody else because those are going to be treated like single-family residential. You will see way over the top of that. But those 5 or 6 homes right there that are touching that blue are going to have an issue.
Absolutely, and that is where I think the next step comes in is to, I believe that we should extend that road, and I believe you had it on your proposed map that you
Make
sent
it that
out.
part of the green buffer.
Make that as part of the, absolutely.
Are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
I think that's very important.
Okay, now, we got that done.
What was
Now-
that?
Okay, so what we're gonna basically do, look at the piece I sent you last Tuesday or Wednesday, just after our last work session. There's a little piece down there, and you can see it very clearly. It's the piece of the blue space on here that is up against those 4 residential homes. There needs to be some type of a buffer there, and residential buffer of 35 feet, I think, is a workable solution at that location.
So-
It'll allow us then to keep a buffer all the way around that when those other places on that UTA property is 60 feet. I think that's
Right.
workable.
So if you look at, and basically you extend it from 2675 west to the junction of 4250 south. And that, I think, takes care of that, to give them that buffer.
Yeah, and remember, the interesting piece that's going to come out of this would be is we don't have a clue what they're going to do in terms of road. In my opinion is they may have to redo the entire road structure in and out of this facility, if for no other reason, just because they need to get something that will fit. And so although we do see the roads in there today, I doubt we'll see the roads when a development proposal's done the same location. Makes no sense to do that. Obviously, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 access points into this property where there's a road. In my mind's eye, they'll more than likely want to tie into those, but they can immediately go right or left or just however they want to do based on a site plan. But as long as you're saying is we want to buffer by those residential units, and everything that's in green with the stripe is going to be 35 feet max, I think we're there.
I think yep, I think
And
that's
then
very
everything
helpful.
that is blue, as long as it's 60 feet, and if you want to measure 60 feet at the rail, or 60 feet where the buses pull up, just pick a place, and that's 60 feet, and everything that goes up is 60 feet. You
I
okay
think
with that?
that's good, yes, thank
Okay.
you. And
Now,
then I was, go
let's
ahead.
so-
60 feet from side, you gotta be careful going rails, because that rail drops off like 3 feet
Mm-hmm.
from the platform.
I'm not
Okay.
sure, if I can, the road that goes in there, Sand Ridge Drive, I'm not sure what the height elevation difference is between the tracks and the road, but if all of a sudden you're saying 60 feet from the tracks, we may already lose 20 feet at the road, and therefore it's only a 40-foot building east of that road.
That's why I'm saying it's like 60 feet from sidewalk.
then
It's-
pick one at
Well-
the station. I mean, all we're saying is some reference point by which all of that development will be set at that reference point. Because to me, I would basically say whatever the height is on those houses on the top, that elevation's known. And as long as you simply says that that's 100 feet above on that rail is, and the people down below from up the top can still look over the top of a 60-foot building, I say get on with it. But knowing there has to be some reference point, pick a reference point where we basically think is a good start and use that reference point. And if it happens to be where the train station step-off is, then use that as the reference point. It's got to be some reference point because you're dealing with elevation issues here. I mean, I don't know how else to do it, Steve, because we could sit here for the next 2 or 3 weeks just trying to figure out finding a reference point. And to me, whatever the site plan proposal comes in, they'll establish something and say, this is our reference point. And as long as as long as the people on that hill can look over the top and not basically and see, well, as long as they can still see their sunrise and sunset, as far as I'm concerned, what's the issue? I mean, there's no issue. It's just a building. And I say that because if you go look at that one building, and we had this conversation when they put that 4-story building where that senior center's at, the biggest complaint we were hearing would be is the people on the hill in the backyard wanted to look over the top of it. And they can. Nice thing about it, they can. And it's nice, it's a great fit, but that's a 4-story building.
It's actually only 3, but
Well,
anyway.
there's a parking area they happen to pour in there, and they put the garage down there, and I'm counting the garage as a story.
But the concern I have is, say they only develop it as single-family homes, right next to the residential. I can be 35 feet from finished grade today, and I'm gonna block, and if I build it at 35 feet, I'm gonna block everybody's view with a single-family home.
if you,
But yet,
from the
if I
road,
build a multifamily, I'm gonna have to keep it at some pre-designated height limit because we want to keep everybody's view.
I don't know what to do about that.
I'm just trying
I-
to,
Because I think the conversation is all about
Understand.
losing the view.
I don't know that that's even the conversation specifically, but it's kind of the feel, it's more of a community feel when you aren't boxed in as much. And it gives a reference point for them, and it was changing, the whole thing's changing, so. Right now, we're not having single family there. We now do have multifamily option there, and that's the only option. And with that in mind, and I don't know if we can go to the next thing, but
Well, are we okay with what we agreed to? Okay, so Steve, you got marching orders on that. If we have to come back and find that reference point so we can find something that's realistic, let's find that and present it to council. But at this point, I think we got virtually everything settled. Now let's talk about north and south of 4,000. Okay, I think that's where you want to carry the next part of the conversation.
one question I had is, it was brought up to have residential only, so I don't remember seeing that changed in the green area for general stoop. I saw one recommendation that we aren't going to have general stoop allowed in the green area, and then one, I wasn't sure. Can you just clarify what that is currently slated at for the green area, if it's general stoop is allowed or not allowed?
So to answer that question, Steve, I assume we're talking about the green stripe.
Correct, the green stripe and any of the green striped area, yes. Are general stoop buildings still allowed in those areas?
It shows in this drawing it is.
Okay, and so with that then, we had talked about having that area be residential only, so I believe we just need to change the use on the general stoop for those columns. We just need to change it from saying any permitted use, we need to have it say residential on the columns here as well, right?
Well, if we don't allow the building type in those, it's gone.
Yeah, if you don't want stoops, you can, that takes it out, and the only thing
Okay.
that goes in there is
Or
just row
so only,
houses.
only row houses, that is what the latest change is? Okay, I wasn't sure what the latest change was.
That would be probably the best approach.
Okay, and then I wanted to just ask, well, let's see here. On the green areas where we're talking about the recreation zone that you
Yep.
had mentioned, are we needing to keep that as recreation, or did we decide just to omit the green recreation, the dark green recreation areas? Because it would just go back to the current zoning of the,
R18.
of the business park area?
It's all,
So that will- so the-
everything in there is R18.
Okay, so we won't have an additional zoning area there?
Well, it's interesting, and the reason why I share this, the only place that I found in the entire zoning map, Steve, that's considered under recreation is actually the golf course and the aquatic center. Of all the parks, of all the open space that we have in here, everything is R18, which is not what it is. I mean, that's what it's zoned, but it's not what it is. So my comment would be, and we can leave it that way, but the only places in the entire city that has a recreation in here is only at the aquatic center and the golf course.
The reason is because it's just a recreation zone. It doesn't allow for anything else other than recreation.
Exactly.
It doesn't even allow for a cemetery.
Yes.
So my thought is keep it the Station North. We're gonna have to add in cemetery regardless if it's Station North or recreation.
Okay, so your point would be is, it,
For
okay.
continuity, keep it the same zone, add in,
Okay,
the
well,
other-
the
the use that you
R18,
want.
our current cemetery is R18.
yeah, but it's not zoned R18 that I remember, but it could be.
It is. So I guess my point would be is, I mean, I guess I don't have any problem. You can leave it striped red and then just be whatever we want Station North it to be, and then just use that factor of 1,100 feet from the Hinckley back down in terms of whether it's 60 feet or 50 feet. I guess that, I'm just saying is our game plan would be is that we're going to make that a cemetery. That's the going-in strategy. But if the council agrees, just leave it striped. It's not going to be a problem, then leave it striped. I think I'm okay with that. Okay.
Okay.
Then the only other piece would be the part south. And this is the south portion of the 4,000. I think we called that one specifically, this is Station,
South.
what did we
That's-
call that?
The original is still Station South, but
Station
it's
South, yeah.
between the tracks. So my biggest concern is if we have Station South zoning stay between those tracks, we now have absolutely no option for those business owners to even do anything with their land. Right now, it's very limited anyway, but even if they could get one access point, then they still wouldn't be able to do anything. And I believe that we need to at least allow those those property owners a chance to do something if they want to until we have two access points. If we get two access points, then it can be changed to the multifamily zoning. But I believe that we need to at least allow them that option, whether that means take that strip out of the zoning map, whether that means change it to something different. I believe that the 35-foot zoning maximum is really good up until maybe the very north part of the strip, because there are no homes around that. You could have a little section that could go higher, but with all of the other homes on both sides, west and east. So I guess the option is, is it better to have it drawn in like the mayor has proposed and keep it part of Chapter 13, or would it be better just to leave it as just take it out of the zoning map altogether. And those are, I think something needs to be done there, and I think those are the two options that I can see. Do you see another option, Mayor?
Well, no, the reality is that there's been a number of attempts to try to find a second access point, which means marking that as some type of residential is just absolutely, will never happen. UTA is not going to budge.
UTA wants it, if they want ridership and they want density.
No, I'm just telling you, my concern's going to be is we're zoning it for something it will never be. Even if you left it industrial, it is something. But zoning it for something it'll never be, I think, is a problem. But comment.
Currently, as light manufacturing, it's very limited as well.
I know.
They don't have a legal public access point to get back there. In fact, beyond Todd Potter's property, I can almost dare say every parcel that's back there was illegally subdivided and no building permit was ever issued. So they couldn't do anything more than they are now.
Right.
And that's just us not doing anything about it. So anything back there is gonna have the same issues regardless if it's light manufacturing or multifamily.
And we have at least a considered proposal putting some type of storage units back in there.
But I haven't heard from them for months.
Well, I know, because they can't get access. Until they
But-
solidify the access, we're stuck. They're stuck. I mean, I just hate to see all that acreage back there basically wasteland.
I mean, I think there's a better chance to eventually get one access point versus relying on waiting for two access points. So you at least allow them to do something.
Well,
You
I
can.
think if you can get from the north, you're gonna get to the south. It's just a matter of money.
And that's a lot of money. Okay, so the comment would be is that this is a solution. You could take that piece of parcel completely out of this zone proposal and leave it industrial. I do have some concerns. Light manufacturing. My concern is that today, light manufacturing in that goes to 60 feet, with the exception of the agreement we have to only put 35 feet on that piece with that developer. My concern right now is that a next city council could come in here and somebody walks in and says, I want to put a 60-foot building in there. By the way, that 60-foot building can not only be storage units, it can be recycling. I mean, there's a whole laundry list of what they could put in there. And if that happened, there isn't a thing the city council can do to stop it. This proposal was to simply give it focus and give it direction in which means you can control it. But you leave it as it is according to the statute. Somebody comes in and says, I want to make that a storage unit and works out all the ring. You could not stop them to putting a 60-foot building in there. And that was my big concern. Manage it. Figure out what you want to do with it. So I guess my comment would be is, do you want to leave it in this discussion, or do you want to take that south portion out of the conversation?
Well, certainly pros and cons to
Both
each.
sides, yeah.
If we leave it in, can you show us with your cursor, Steve, where the residential homes on the north end stop? And I was thinking that the 60-foot area might really be limited if we're going to try to keep it consistent for all of the,
It's that first big green square heading off south of 4,000.
it would really, I believe that it's probably going to be just around 200 feet, and I'm guessing completely there to allow that 100, but then maybe have the rest of it stay at 35, because then that would protect the west residents as well, and keep it consistent if we decide to do that. And then the other question,
Anything beyond the blue, you've almost got to say, keep it 35 feet.
Yes.
Okay,
On the west side of
so
the blue?
everything that's south of the blue in that green line, you keep it 35 feet, and everything north of there, you basically could go back up to the 60 feet.
So you just cut it right here?
no, go up to the top. If you can go to the
first
very,
green square south of 4,000 is kind of what she's talking about.
because there's still a lot of residential, so that's it right there, yep.
You have the Hooper Water storage tank right there.
You do right on the corner, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a pretty good-sized storage tank.
That's why I think she's saying allow it 60 feet in that area, and everything else south of that would be 35. Am I correct, Diane?
Yes, that way you're consistent with all of the residents.
So you're gonna have, when you say first little square, you're talking this one?
Yes.
So this section right here can go 60 and the rest is
35. Council?
So that's right there on the corner of 4,000.
Yes.
That one.
That way it allows a little bit of an area of 60 foot if you want to, because it's 60 foot on either side of it. And so if that's beneficial for them, they could have it.
Okay, thoughts? You okay with that?
one little chunk. I'd just say leave it all 35 feet.
Well, it's just that the property owners, you already got a building on the end that's probably a little taller than 35 feet. But I think the argument would be is that at least on that corner with that big water tank that's surely more than 35 feet, it would be consistent with the height if you did go up to allow 60 feet if they wanted. I don't think you could, personally, I don't think you have the space in there. There's only 120 feet or 110 feet distance across there, and putting a 60-foot, how wide's a too wide street? 30 feet, 35 feet, something?
Public right at 60 feet is the minimum.
60 feet. So you got 110, 112 feet, 60 feet of that's got to be a public road. How are you going to put a 60-foot building on 60 feet and have setbacks?
You're not going to. That's
Not
why I
gonna
say
happen.
just leave the whole thing 35 feet.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. You see the challenge, and that's the only access point that I see at this moment of a possibility.
Can I throw a little rock?
Please.
Because you,
No more rocks.
you could always change the standards. I know Mark Miller with Wasatch Civil has kind of developed one where the road could be 30 feet wide, still meets the fire departments as long as you are next to or running along the DNRG trail. Very limits where that road can exist.
Oh.
You still have, you wouldn't be able to park on either side of the road, but the fire department still meets their minimum requirement. You use the trail as your sidewalks instead of having it on a street. Therefore, you're just really reducing it down from curb face to curb face.
But correct me if wrong, UTA owns that ground. We just have to be real careful.
No, this would be east of UTA property.
Yes, as long as you can get, but I think when I did the measurement on that, it was like 110,
Yeah,
117
I mean, it's still a
feet.
small property and what you
Yeah.
can do with it, but if somebody owned a mall, that could be part of your open space requirement that is there, and your buildings are south of that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Well, I guess,
so here's the question. We've got roughly 1 minute. Do you want to basically go in and make the whole thing 35 feet, or you want to take that top corner and make that 60 feet, and then everything south of there is going to be 35?
35 feet.
Okay, we'll take that. And good conversation. I think we made some headway. Steve, we'll need to work out all of this for our next work session so we can flush all this out and hopefully get this ready for vote. Good discussion. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and anything else before we adjourn? Okay, do I have a motion then to adjourn the work session?
so moved.
Okay. Okay, so I got Joe, I got Diane, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
No, he's the one that gave it to me. But you're welcome that I shared. Not in this group. Pretty tough business. Mayor doesn't believe he breaks.
I give you a break. Now let's get going.
See what I mean? Pretty tough
Oh,
crowd.
you guys are so funny. Hey, I'd like to welcome you all out to the Royce City City Council meeting for July 20th, okay, 2021. This is starting at 5:30. I want to recognize the fact that we have Councilmember Paul with us, Councilmember Saxton, Councilmember Wilson, and Councilmember Jackson. And we've excused Councilmember Burrell. With that, we'd like to begin with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. And we've asked Councilmember Wilson if she'll lead us into the moment of silence and pledge of allegiance.
Thank you. If you'll all arise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Wilson. We do have two consent items, one being the approval of the June 15th, 2021 Royce City Council meetings and the work session minutes. Do I have any comments, council, on those particular documents?
Make a motion, we approve the consent items.
Okay, we have a motion then to approve the consent items. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Brian, I heard you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved. Thank you. Now, this is the public comment period. If you have anything you'd like to share with us in public comment, and specifically if you'd like to make comments on any of the resolutions or ordinances that we're going to be discussing tonight, this is a wonderful time to step up to the mic and tell us what you're thinking. But you bring up any comments, any questions, anything you'd like to share with. All I ask is your name and your address. Hi, Marge.
Marge Bigcraft, and I live at 1992 West, 3775 South.
Thank you.
I'm concerned about item number 5, the rezoning from RE20 to R3. We have been very concerned about this because of a couple of things, the egress and outgress to that property. Multi-housing, we're concerned about that, and if this does pass, we would like to see more like townhomes rather than high-density apartments. I'm very concerned about the water. If we have another year like this, it is not going to be good to be adding that many more homes to it. And we talk about, well, this is culinary water that they would be using, but culinary water is filled by the aquifers, and if we have no rain, the aquifers will deplete completely. I appreciate Diane Wilson coming and looking at the property and seeing what it was like. It is on a slope, and it is total sand. We are very concerned about that as far as what it's going to be able to take to get it up to where it needs to be, because it is very sandy. The traffic, we experience at least one accident a week out on Hinckley and as you come around on 1900, and that's not too many feet from where the egress is right now. So those are things that we are very concerned about, knowing that if this does pass, townhouses more so than the apartment houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Marge. Okay, anybody else like to share their thoughts on anything? Kevin?
Kevin Homer, I live at 5398 South, 4000 West. Just a couple things. During this past week at the Planning Commission meeting, there was something that happened that I think is worth noting. If I go to a restaurant and something bad happens, I make sure that I tell the manager. But if there's something good that happens, I also make sure that people know about that. So at the Planning Commission meeting, there was one gentleman at the very last item on the agenda. He was trying to present a site plan, and he didn't know a whole lot and was not very familiar with all the codes and setbacks and parking space requirements. And I think it was very good that Mr. Parkinson was very very patient with him and offered a whole bunch of help to be able to figure out how to massage that site plan, if at all possible, to make it work. So his willingness to help, I think, deserves a lot of props and a lot of kudos, so well done. The other thing I would ask about is there's currently in process right now some modifications to ordinances here in Roy about door-to-door sales and solicitation. Just wondering if I could get an update from somebody on staff about that.
Andy?
We already passed that probably back, would that have been February?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's in place.
Oh, my feelings are hurt. I wasn't aware, so I apologize.
It's only been a
Yeah.
year working on it, Kevin.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. So
It's-
thank you all very much for your
Yeah,
work.
it's in place and it should be if you go onto the website.
Yeah, and if you need help knowing where to find it, I'd be more than happy, Kevin, just to print it out and send it to you. Yeah, but yes, that ordinance was passed. Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to share a thought? Thank you. Just name and address.
Michael Skinner, 3692 South, 2025 West. I'm concerned about the same ordinances as Marge. I do understand, I prefer to have houses in those areas, but I understand that it's, with the way the situation is nowadays within the state, that we need more high density. I would ask that the council would consider on this rezoning to add an addendum that have it as townhomes instead of just apartments. That's all.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Anybody else like to share a thought? Any topic? Doesn't matter what you like to talk about. Just let us know what you're thinking.
Brittany Goodson, 4337 South, 2175 West. And just on behalf of the resolution that's going to be taking place tonight for Tara, I just wanted to, on behalf of the family, thank you guys for considering her and taking her service into account and everything that she does for the city and for citizens here in Roy. This is a wonderful honor and we're just very grateful. Wanted to say thank you officially.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, it's a great honor on our part. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Anything you want to talk about? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close our public comment period, and we do have some action items, so we'll jump right into those. We do have the swearing in of a new sergeant, Francis, and I do believe, Chief, you're...
Mayor, can we hold on just a second with that? He's stuck in traffic right now.
Oh,
I see his mom and dad, but I don't see him.
okay, well,
Swear at him.
now you could do the whole thing right now while he's gone, and we can embarrass him, Chief, but if you'd like to hold off just a little while, we'll do that.
Oh, there he is.
We actually did that on purpose.
Oh, I agree. Well, if nothing else, Chief, there's an opportunity for us to work on the traffic, right?
I don't know if you heard, but there is a traffic problem. I-15, 56.
56? Okay.
So
Chief.
if I may, I'd like to introduce what is about to be Sergeant Jake Francis. And he is with his wife, Jonna, his 10-month-old daughter, Mikey, and his 11-year-old daughter, Riley. My parents are here too. And Mom and Dad. And they can all come up with you, Jake. So Jake has been a loyal Roy City employee going all the way back to high school when his first supervisor was Travis Flint.
Wow.
That's why he's done such a phenomenal job here. He's been with the police department for 16 years, and that time he served as a patrol officer, FTO, detective, school resource officer. He is involved with our training, specifically with new recruits, and he's just done a fantastic job. And Jake and I were actually baby cops together back in 2003 and 4. So we started our careers here together. So we're gonna let him get sworn in, and then we're gonna have his wife pin his badge on for him.
Wonderful. Okay, Morgan?
Having been a lifeguard apprentice,
Do solemnly swear or affirm. That I will support, obey, and defend. The Constitution of the United States. Constitution of the State of. And that I will discharge the duties. Of my office with fidelity.
So we opened up the sergeant's process. We had 9 applicants, or 9 candidates apply to become a sergeant. And Jake obviously was one who was selected, and in law enforcement, sergeant is considered to be the pinnacle of one's career. It's the best of both worlds. You get to be an administrator, and you still get to be a cop. So we're happy for him. He's going to be a great asset to our team.
Love it. Okay, Jake, thank you. And family, thanks for joining us tonight on this great occasion.
Thank you.
Okay, council, any comments you'd like to make before we move on?
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Jake.
Good
I've
job.
known his dad since we were kids. We grew up by each other, so I've known Jake for a long time too, and great to see people that I know.
Is there
Good,
anybody
yeah.
you don't know?
I was about ready to ask you what year did you graduate, because you know what year everybody graduates.
His sister's my age, class of 72. He was younger. 76, Kenny? Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, we do have a public hearing on the stormwater management plan. And Brandon, before we jump into it, I do need to go into a public hearing, but why don't you go ahead and just give us a little bit of an idea of what this is about, and then I'll let you go into a public hearing and let the public comment, and then we'll get into more detail.
Okay, so the stormwater prevention plan, management plan is basically a plan, we have to update it every 5 years, and it just keeps us in compliant with the state and the EPA as well. So it's just another thing to keep us in compliance so that we're we're taking care of the stormwater throughout the city. So
Okay,
it's kind of that in a nutshell.
okay, that's a nutshell. Okay, with that then, do I have a motion to go into a public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, and
I'll
do I have a second? Joe? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now in a public hearing. If you'd like to make comments relative to this plan, did get posted last week, so you had all weekend to get through around 300 pages of all you can think about conversation. It was massive. If you'd like to make a comment, please come to the mic. Okay.
Can we
Seeing-
suck some of the water out and water the lawns with it?
There'll be a comment period after we get out of public hearing.
Well, I have an access point right in front of my house, and I look at all the water that's going
I
down that
know.
every day, and I'm thinking,
I understand.
could be used.
Yeah,
Can
it's
we
all stormwater.
recycle it?
We got Teton Wells down below. Okay, with that then, hearing nobody like to make a comment, do I have a motion then to go out of public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, thank
I'll
you,
second it.
Diane. And second that, okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now out of a public hearing. Council comments, questions? Anything you'd like to discuss with Brandon?
Nope.
If you do get a chance to really get into it, I would suggest read the last part, the appendix pieces. There's lots of interesting information I had no clue. The rest of it, to be honest with you, Brandon, is pretty boring. But I know it's required by statute. But the fact of the matter is, there's some really interesting things in there about specific locations within the city. It just give you a reference to that. So having said that then, and hearing nothing from the council, do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 21-18 approving the stormwater management plan?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Joe, I got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Diane, thank you. We got a second. This is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect, thank you. And I was looking to see if we had our contractor help. Oh, there he is. Okay. Thanks for joining us, okay? That was, you guys did a great job. I think the whole team did a nice job putting that package. Very detailed document. Thank you. Okay, with that then, we have Resolution 21-19 honoring Tara Goodson, who is named the National Miss America Coronet at the National Miss America Coronet Pageant. And Morgan, I believe you're going to talk to this. We're excited about this day.
Well, I'm obviously a lot taller, but I'm so excited. This is the first time I've been able to present a resolution to the council, and I couldn't be more tickled about the resolution I get to present. So, help me through this. Tara Goodson is a lifelong resident of Roy City who has provided exceptional services to the community by volunteering numerous times to assist Roy City staff with the Roy Day celebration, by organizing food drives for the local food bank and community blessing boxes. You gotta calm down. By spending countless hours helping families at Christmas, and is currently collecting donations to help families purchase back to school supplies. Tara participated in this year's Miss American Coronet pageant, which is an achievement and character-based pageant for women and girls of all ages throughout the United States. Tara participated in the Ms. Division of the Miss America Coronet pageant for women between the ages of 31 and 49. Participants in the Miss America Coronet pageant compete in areas demonstrating character and community involvement and are expected to make appearances to promote their platform in their community. Tara has Down syndrome and has chose her platform, Ability Before Disability, helping the world see people for what they can do instead of what they can't. Each contestant is judged on and given scores for several different categories: a resume, photogenic, community involvement, talent and skills, leadership, academics, and 3 essays. Tara received the highest scores from the judges on all areas, while being the only participant in her age group with a disability, and was crowned National Miss America Coronet for 2021. We're so excited. Congratulations, Tara. Not to mention, Tara this year will be our Grand Marshal for the Roy Days celebration.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Okay, who's going to read the resolution?
I just did.
Is that how the resolution read? Oh, I like that one. Where's the whereases and all that other stuff
I
there?
may have skipped over those.
Oh.
I was given permission.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Okay, well, thank you. I really like that read. That was a great one. Council, comments, questions?
I think that's awesome.
It is.
Congratulations.
It's
And I'm
just,
so excited for you to be our Grand Marshal, Roy Days Parade. That's awesome. You make sure you wear that crown.
yeah, that's a nice crown.
Okay. Okay with that, Council. Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited. So therefore, do I have a motion?
She would like to say something.
You want us to say something?
She just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Tara, thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for getting me to this, for getting me to be the Grand Marshal. It really means a lot to me, and I just really wanted to say that I am so honored I am so honored that I'm just so feeling like I feel so good, and I'm honored to I just want to say that I wanted to say I want to say thank you for what you did and for giving me this Grand Marshal. It means a lot to me. It just makes me feel so good, and it's like a dream come true. So thank you so much for doing that for me, and I will love it so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Tara.
welcome.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
congratulations. Well done. Tara did want to shake the hands of the entire council. Perfect. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Well done, Morgan. Okay, great read. And Tara, what an incredible achievement. That is so cool. National level. That's just incredible for our hometown of Roy. So with that then, do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 21-19 honoring Tara Goodson?
So moved.
Ann?
Yeah.
Okay, there's
Second that.
And I heard Joe second. This is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect. Thank you, council. And thank you, Tara. Wonderful achievement. We couldn't be more pleased. Thank you. And have fun on that parade, okay? And just make sure they give you buckets of candy to throw, okay? We'll be looking for that.
Remember, elbow, rest, rest.
Thank you, Tara. Tiffany, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now we have ordinance 21-9 amending the general plan, the land, future land use map and minimum density from minimum density single family to very high density multifamily residential at approximately 3673 South, 1900 West. So, council, you've looked at the drawings, information, comments. Well, let me back up. Steve, you're going to kind of introduce this one so we have all the updated information. Please.
And if possible, I'd like to talk about item 5 as well. The conversation kind of goes hand in hand.
It does.
As you mentioned, this is a request to change the general plan from commercial to very high-density multifamily, and the zoning map from RE20 and community commercial to RE3.
Right.
Just as by way of where it's located, you got Hinckley Drive on the north, 1900 West, kind of in the middle of the map. The UP, Union Pacific Railroad, they're identified in red, and then in blue is kind of the boundary between Ogden, Roy areas. Kind of everybody understand where we're at? You got the mobile home park there to the east. So again, they're requesting to change the map on the left from that red to very high density residential. Now, as most of you know, the general plan calls it very high density, but the definition in the zoning ordinance means only 12 units per acre. In comparison, the R2, which is duplex, is 11.5 units per acre. So it's not really very high density. That's just how the general plan, because the general plan called it to be up to 25 units per acre, but the zoning map or the zoning ordinance didn't translate the same into it. So language kind of is what it is. The zoning map, again, you've got 2 zones on these properties. The north portions, there's 2 parcels that are currently zoned community commercial, and the southern portion where the house is RE20. So they're requesting to amend both those maps. So, and sorry, I put commission, not council, so upgrade yourselves a little bit here. The questions we need to ask, does changing or not changing the zone provide the best options for development of this property? Remember, right now, majority of it can be zoned commercial and has the ability of developing commercial. How can this property be best developed, large lot, single family or multifamily, and what's best for Roy City? The Planning Commission did have a public hearing. They voted 6-0 to recommend approval of both those recommendations, and staff has the same. Now, during the public hearing, the applicant, who is here if you have questions, did mention that it would be townhomes. And then just so you know, I gotta get out of that. There we go. The applicant did provide kind of what elevations would look like for a fourplex. So Material-wise, I haven't really looked at it that wise. They still have to meet the ordinance for materials. The height of the building would still have to be no taller than 35 feet, but this is kind of a concept of what they have done in the past. Again, he's just saying townhomes, not apartments, not a 3-story apartment type complex. So that kind of goes with what a few of the people that came up during public comment period were concerned about. If it passes, it would be townhomes, and that's kind of what he's wanting. I do want to kind of address some of the issues that were brought up. And I do have John Biergehart with Wasatch Civil and Brandon with Public Works that they can give you the professionalism of it, but I can probably quote it the same, and you can look at them and they can nod their heads or tell me I'm up in the night. In and out of the property, as everybody knows, is a UDOT road, so they do have to be granted approval from UDOT to gain access. Just so you know, 1900 West has a classification that they don't want any access points within 350 feet of each other. From the middle of the intersection to the southernmost point of this property is 630 some odd feet. So they meet that. When they do come for a development, they'll have to get a traffic study. UDOT will go through it. It may be limited on access. It might be right in, right out, or right in, left, right out, left in, similar to what's going on in 4800 South. It's unknown, is it gonna be a full, is it gonna be partial, to what extent? But unless UDOT's willing to buy all the property and deem it unaccessible, they'll grant access. Luckily, on this particular project, none of the traffic would go in amongst current residential. It'd go all out to major roads already. So that traffic study will dictate the who, what, where, why, and how they're gonna access this property. Is there gonna be medians, is there gonna be light, is there gonna be all those type of things? So it's really hard to say what it's gonna be. Water, I'll let Brandon kind of talk about that, because he's more of the expert than I am. But I do know we have plenty of culinary water.
Can I ask a question right there before you go into water?
Yep.
Is it likely to be a right in, right out only?
It's hard to say what UDOT would do. There's a project that Kevin had complimented me about, which, thank you, but I never thought UDOT would give them access, and they did. They gave them a temporary access, and if any of you can define what temporary means, I'll blow your mind with what it really is. It's a 99-year agreement. He was
that's temporary.
He was granted a temporary access point, and I couldn't believe it, because he's closer than 350 feet to the intersection. So it's really hard to say what UDOT's gonna do.
Is that striped to where it'd allow a left-hand turn into that from the northbound lane?
Well, they would have to probably have a de-escalation, to slow down and to speed up. That would what the traffic study would come up with.
So the traffic study's basically gonna dictate what will be allowed there, just like
What,
went through
where,
on
how.
4800.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, the house that's located there right now has access to 1900.
It has full access.
So the development can we assume that would replace that home?
Yes.
And then from that location, more than likely, that maybe will be the access point in and out of that property on the
UDOT
east?
would probably push it as far south as they can go. That's my thought.
And that's pretty far south, if you look at where that's at. Now,
as far south
that's
as you
probably more than 1,000 feet from the center of 1900 when you get down into the lower parts. I'm going to suspect you're going to need to put a residential, you're going to need a second access point into that property.
That will be dictated by the fire department, how many units they have, if it's sprinkled, is it not sprinkled, is it, those are things you don't know until you get the design.
If you recall, Mayor, that's what happened on 4800 is they couldn't get it in and out. So it reduced the number of units in there.
Right.
And then the traffic study come back, right in, right out only. And then it also dictated helping with the roundabout. So,
Right.
I mean, a lot of those things, the concerns are valid, but they're going to be taken care of when you do the traffic study, when you do the environmental study of, okay, it's all sand, are they going to make them build on pylons or whatever?
And the original approval for that 4800 South was 154 townhomes,
I remember.
not 72 single-family homes. So
Yeah.
he actually reduced the number of accessing that, but the traffic study allowed for that many. So
Okay.
how many will be, it's kind of unknown at this point.
Okay,
Water-wise, again, we have enough. Yes, you know, rainwater is helpful and stuff like that, but I don't think we're gonna have an issue. We may become like California, you know, where it's, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Type of thing where you start to
You always spray
conserve-
paint your lawn.
Huh?
I seen it in Salt Lake today. It was interesting.
But you know, if it gets to that point, everybody's gonna be well, can't talk, will have a problem, will have an issue. But our ground, you know, our grasses will already be dead by that point if we're worrying about, you know, flushing the toilet or not.
okay.
Traffic, we already talked about it, the slope and total sand. Again, even if it was developed as single-family residential, large commercial, the site has to be dealt with. A geotech report would be required both from the engineer and the building department. The building more looking how is the construction of the building, what is its requirements, and the engineer will look at it, how is the site gonna be developed? You know, drainage and stuff like that. John could get more details if you had more questions, but
So like if it was deemed that it's a sand hill, they would dictate how they build on
yeah,
it.
the geotech would tell them what they need to do for the building and how the site should be developed.
Okay,
I think that was pretty much all their questions or concerns. The other ones that are within the planning commission, I kind of answered within the staff report. So staff would also recommend approval of both the two ordinances.
okay, council, you have comments?
If the person that is proposing this wouldn't mind just coming, we could just,
Name and address, please.
Derek Terry, Kaysville, 1263 Sir Barton Drive.
Thank you.
well, thank you. Maybe you can just do kind of a brief presentation of kind of what you have in mind. We saw the pictures, which were nice, and
Yeah, I mean, Steve did a good job explaining it. We're just looking to get it rezoned for townhomes, and then once we have that, we'll do all the investigation needed with UDOT and with the soils and with everything to figure out what's actually on the site. But until we know what we can do, we can't, you know, we can't invest that money into to answer all the questions. But we do plan on answering all the questions once we have the zoning.
Did I read
yeah.
somewhere that's a fourplex?
Yeah.
So townhome.
Uh-huh.
How many of those, I mean, it's hard to tell right now, preliminary. How many of those units do you think you would get in there?
With 12 to the acre, it's around 80. If we were to get get all the units in there, so 80 divided by 4. I'm not good at math, but
Okay,
and
well, I might have to take my shoes off to get
20.
there.
are you
So you're
planning?
thinking 20 of those units right there in there?
Are you planning on buying this, developing it, and selling it? Are you getting the zoning changed, selling it to someone else, selling the properties, renting?
Yeah, so we would buy it, develop it, and manage it.
So they'd be rental properties?
Yeah, and the way we do it is so the HOA and the management company manages all the units. So that way, because if they're just for sale, somebody can buy them and nobody can prevent anybody from renting them, but then also nobody can enforce them to keep them up, to where we have the management company in place and the HOA that all the units get maintained at the same place so they all stay nice, because it's not, if somebody's buying them then renting them, it's not fair for the one next door to look bad and yours to look good, because it decreases your value. So the management company upkeeps them all and makes sure that everybody has to keep them up.
So what is the parking? Is it garages or parking?
Yeah, there's 2-car garages behind.
And so it's like 3-bedroom townhomes?
Yeah.
3-bedroom, 2-bath?
What other amenities do you anticipate putting in the,
We don't know yet. We'll have to see. We haven't laid it out. So once we lay it out with the units and see what space and things we have in terms of.
what do you
other
normally do?
amenities. I mean, we've done pools or pickleball courts. I mean, with this size, it's a little smaller, so I don't think we'll be feasible for a pool, but we'll do some kind of amenity for the residents.
Open
there.
space,
Yeah.
park, stuff like that?
Yeah.
The open space and or amenities is required by ordinance. 2.5 parking stalls per unit is required by ordinance.
all right.
You're pretty good, Steve. I might back up what Kevin said about you.
Okay, other questions?
Well, the concerns about the sand, obviously, you know, you have to have a study and
Yeah.
you're not gonna build something that's gonna fall down, obviously.
Yeah, we know that song.
And they look very nice, and, I mean, we can't stop progress. I, know that I want the Hansons to be able to sell that property and put something nice there, and I can never see any kind of grocery store, it would always have to be housing.
I mean, I've looked at it and thought, I'm one that says, don't get rid of your commercial property because that's all we have left. But I've looked at that property multiple times and said, I can't think of anything commercial that matches in there that would fit in there. And so if we're able to mitigate the other concerns, which it will by traffic studies and geotechnical studies, I think it's probably the right fit. We've seen a couple other projects go along 1900 that's turned out very well with some density. There's one a little farther south than there.
Yeah.
And I've always said density makes sense on sections of 1900 and the tracks. You're not impacting east-west traffic there. You're already on a main road both directions, and so.
Let me ask a more difficult question, Steve, because I think what I'm hearing from the council would be is R3 does authorize apartments or townhouses. But I'm sensing from the council they're saying is that it needs to be townhouses. Does this agreement, this proposal need to be very specific if they approve it to talk that it is going to be townhouses so that that if this gets delayed 6 months, a year, 2 years, different council, that the decision defines that to be a townhouse development and not an apartment development?
I'll refer to our council here.
The council can make whatever conditions they want on that in their approval. Typically, we might take care of that in a development agreement in advance, but.
That's what I'm thinking. If the development agreement is, because what I'm hearing, if the council is thinking this is reasonable, and the resident simply says, okay, if you're thinking it might be reasonable, but I want to make sure it's a townhouse development versus an apartment development, then I think to find a halfway point between what the residents are saying and what the council needs to put in motion if they're going to consider approving this would be is, okay, you might think this is a good thing, but let's listen to the public, and the public is saying is if you're going to do it, then make sure it's townhouses. And if a development agreement will solidify that to ensure that when it's all said and done, that it's going to be townhouses, then that may give you council an option to consider, okay, as we go consider taking a vote on this.
Mayor, you could make the approval with that condition, approving the ordinance with that condition rather than sending it back for a development agreement.
Yeah.
Because the development agreement has to go back through the planning commission, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't.
Or it just delays.
But it'll delay things, and that's.
Okay,
if you
so it'd
wanna
just
put
be
that-
a
So whoever
condition of
makes the
making-
motion, make the motion with the amendment that it's a townhome development only.
Well, I'm saying only because I'm hearing the public say that if you're going to do this, if you think this is, and this has been sitting quite a long time as a commercial property and never materialized. If the property owner today simply says, I'd like to sell it, and they have a developer who's interested in doing something with it, and it just happens to be, it needs to be changed to an R3, and you think this is the best use of this property in Roy, then I simply says, then the public saying, if you're going to do that, then please consider the public input and say, make sure the development standard says that it's going to be townhouses and let that be part of
Well, and the other part why I would agree with that to make sure that that's in the proposal is this is what's being proposed. So in our mind, we're thinking this is what's going on. But if somewhere it changes hands and somebody shifts gears on you,
Right.
and all of a sudden they want to put in a 4-story apartment building. So,
Right.
yeah, whoever makes a motion, just make sure that they put in there that it's condition on, yeah.
a development agreement that only puts townhouses.
I don't know if you got to do a development agreement. I think you just put in there condition and that it's a
Yeah,
townhome.
I think you could just make that part of your motion, and then we could change the ordinance to include that it's developed as townhomes, and
Townhomes.
then you're
Okay.
done.
And that way it moves from one owner to another if that should happen.
Yeah.
And Matt brought up a good point. That contingency, don't put that on the general plan, so the ordinance that talks about the general plan, but that can come in with
The rezone.
the ordinances subsequent to that.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, then, council, we need to go for a motion to approve ordinance 21-9 to amend the general plan, future land use map from medium-density single-family to very high-density multifamily residential at 3673 South, 1900 West. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, Diane approved.
I'll
Do I have-
second it.
Okay, and second it. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That's approval.
So the next two is where you want to put in.
Yeah, we needed the first one done so that we can do the second. So let's finish the second, okay? Do you need to look at the maps to understand what the next step of this will be?
Well,
This is ordinance 21-10 to amend the zoning map. You okay?
right.
Okay, we have to do, if you don't do one, you really can't do the other. So if any of this would have dropped out, we really can't do the other one. So you approve the first one, let's see if we can get the zoning map change approved.
That's good. Not
Okay.
me.
Any questions or comments on ordinance 21-10? Council? Okay, then, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-10 to amend the zoning map from community, commercial, and RE20 residential estate to R3 multifamily residential at 3673 South, 1900 West?
I have a clarification in there. It says, you put "and" in there, which I think is probably right. This says from community commercial to RE20 to R3.
Where?
Yeah, and ours it's.
So if you look at number 5 on action items, it says from community commercial to RE20, and then it says to R3. Shouldn't it say from community commercial and R20 to R3?
Yeah, the staff report and what's on the monitor are correct.
Yeah, it
That
just
would have required me to put these on so I could see what's on the monitor.
Yeah,
Still want to make you look young, so take them off.
it's actually and you've put it in there as and that's correct. That's how I wrote it and read it.
You read it right. What I'm reading at right here
Said
is
two.
two.
That's correct. Okay.
I'll move to move forward with ordinance 21-10 to amend the zoning map from community commercial and RE20 to R3 at 3673 South, 1900 West, with the additional caveat and condition that building will be townhomes.
Okay.
I'll second
You
it.
okay with that, Andy? Okay. I have a motion then to approve from Diane. I've got a second by Ann. This is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Approved. Thank you. Okay, we've got those two ordinances. And we have one last one. Steve, ordinance 21-11, considering amendments to Title 10 zoning regulation. This one being driven by the recent law that was passed. So go ahead, let's talk about that, and then go ahead and we'll have comments.
So I'll caveat this, again, this came from, directive from the state. It's not one that I dreamt of or love, but it's something that we have to do, because if we don't do it, come October 1st, it's mandatory or allowed anyway. So it's more of us taking control over it, dictating how we would like it to fit within our city and our city ordinances versus the state just saying, here it is, no say. So this is for internal accessory dwelling units, or more referred to IADUs. So we're going to amend the parking requirements, standards for IADUs, and the definition of family. Again, a caveat for the definition of family, is it May 5th, Andy? Or Matt? I think it was May 5th. That was already what we're going to ask to remove out of our ordinance was already mandated by the city, that it's gone from everybody's ordinance. So if you don't like me when I show you what we're doing, it's already been removed. So the issue is to allow this as a use and it says primarily residential, but we can't exclude it from manufacturing homes or mobile homes. So we allow this in all primarily residential zones, so RE20, RE15, R115, R10, 8, 7, 6, and then R2, R3, and R4. Now the R2, R3, and R4, it's going to be difficult. If you have a 2-bedroom apartment, I'm not sure how you're going to get another unit out of that, but I wasn't going to take a chance that the state says that we didn't meet the requirements, so we'll just allow it as a use. I just don't think it will ever happen in those 3 zones, but I don't want to, say no in that, and then the state say, no, we have to allow them. So within that, the Planning Commission took a look at what the ordinance or the state statute was. And again, this is House Bill 82. There was things that we can require or may require. Parking space, an additional parking space, we can only have one. If this was a duplex, we could require under today's ordinance in the R2, 2.5 stalls. But H Bill 82 is again to help with the costs of rentals, cost of someone converting their basement to a rental. So they said, no, cities, you can only require one parking stall. So I know parking is an issue, and it has been with most of the uses that we have. So requiring it to the Planning Commission was a yes, require it. Within that, to meet the standards in Chapter 19, which we'll go over a little bit, the primary resident must occupy the other portion of the building, and that being whoever's the owner of record.
So you can't split rent the house?
What do you mean?
So when you say the owner has to occupy the other half of it, I can't split my house up and rent to two different people if I'm not occupying
As a
it.
duplex, right.
Now that's a definition of a duplex. So the state, again, was very careful on their wording that in order to do an IADU, because in this House bill, they didn't just look at the zoning, they went into building code, which they never do
Are
or
you
have
saying they
never
did
done.
something right?
No. So within the building code, if you're gonna have a second unit, you have to have fire separation, you have to have second water, sewer, mechanical, you gotta separate everything. And their thought was, again, if we can make it cheaper, the rent's not gonna be higher. But if you all of a sudden now, the owner doesn't live there, you made it a duplex, and does that meet an intent of what House Bill 82 was? No. This kind of supersedes what your zoning would say, you have to be an R2 to have a duplex. So they said that you can require the primary resident of owner record has to occupy it, has to be more than 30 days. The rent has to be 30 days to get around Airbnbs.
What's the difference between a rental and a roommate
Well, under definition of
or
family,
cohabitation?
under definition of family.
Okay, we'll get there.
Usually if you got family with you, your daughter, your son come back and living with you and you're charging rent, they still have full access to every bathroom, to your kitchen, to your family room, where if you're renting it to Brandon, you're not gonna want him to have access to your bathroom, to your kitchen, generally.
That'll make him ornery.
As long as
So-
he's got access to the refrigerator, he don't care.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know, I still think there's a little gray area in that, because
Well, again-
if I have a roommate, it's not family.
Right, but under definition of family, it's up today, before we change it, well, actually, the state's already changed it, it says for unrelated individuals. Or all those we can go there now. Or any number of people who are related by blood, marriage, adoption, or court sanctioned guardianship. B is for unrelated people or two unrelated people and all associated children. That's a family. So your kids are still related to you by blood, adoption, or court. You're still one family.
But if your wife kicks you out and you want to come live at my house for 2 months, does
You're-
it fall under this?
You could fall underneath the 4 people. Now, is
Okay.
the code enforcement officer gonna go over there and say, hey, he's got him, his 2 kids, and 1 person? It's gonna be hard to.
Probably not until the neighbor complains.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of the questions that are already, what's a family, what's the definition of family? So this is a separate family in a separate unit that's got a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
because we do have people that
Oh, yeah. I got.
have
like-
roommates and cohabitate, whatever, I don't care their arrangement, but I just want to make sure that people can continue to
Yeah, I've
go
got
on
my-
their way
I've
of
got my
life.
kids and 3 grandkids living in with me. I charge them rent. But we're still one family. They have access to my kitchen. They have access to our bathrooms.
We're good.
Rent for 30 consecutive days or longer. this is to, and boy, I have a lot of explanations to things, but Airbnb. 3 or so years ago, the state mandated that the cities cannot regulate Airbnbs. So they were kind of an exempt use that cities couldn't say, no, you can't do it, or what have you. But with House Bill 82, with going into the building code, if someone comes in for a building permit to convert their basement, have a kitchen, to make it a rentable space, and then turns around and makes it an Airbnb instead, the state says, well, they're in violation of what we're trying to do here. Now the cities can go after them, where before we couldn't.
What about a VRBO?
Same thing, Airbnb, VRBO, if you're renting it for a weekend or rent, it's gotta be 30 consecutive days or longer.
Okay.
Just like if you had a duplex and you were renting the units out. Must obtain a rental dwelling license. Right now, every rental is required a license. If I'm renting out just my single-family home, or if I'm renting out my duplex, or renting out my 4 townhome, my 4 rooms or units in a townhome, everybody's required to have a business license. So the planning commission says, well, if I'm gonna do it to one, I've gotta do it to all. If I'm gonna allow one not to have to do it, the guy with the duplex is gonna come in and ask you, why does he have to do it? And the guy with the triplex is gonna ask you, why does he have to do it? And so on and so on. Now, you guys can, at a different time, discuss rates if you wanna do it. I know we're doing I don't know what it's called, but a rate assessment on all of our stuff. Are we charging the right amount for a business license, a building permit, a rental, so they may say, no, we're charging 2 months and things go down, or they may say, you're not charging enough and things go up.
So like in your situation where they're considered family, you don't have to have a business license to charge your kids rent?
Because I'm still a family.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
I'm not renting my house out to somebody.
I mean, if you're doing it for income and that's your primary source, I could see that. But if you're sharing your space with your
Yeah.
family or roommate or cohabitation or whatever, I don't think we ought to charge them additional fees
Yeah,
for it.
and we don't now. And then the state says we can record it with the county. And really what that does is if I'm the next person to buy the house, I'm gonna ask the question, is that unit legal? At least I should be asking that question. And the recording of it on the county says, yes, the city recognizes this as an internal accessory dwelling unit. It is therefore legal.
I think that's good for a paper trail.
Right. So that was kind of the thinking of the planning commission for these 5 standards is we require it for many other things, let's require it for this. The parking standard is you gotta have one standard that's non-tandem to your existing. So everybody has a 2-car garage that's side by side. Well, the question was, well, can that renter now go in the driveway behind one of yours? Well, the non-tandem means no, because this is a separate family. They need to be almost side by side by side. So that new needs to be not in the setback, side and front, which is what requires for multifamily, single family, and duplex. Can't be in the front or side yard setback.
And so to clarify that, when we were discussing, you were saying because most homes don't have that extra width available, they can drive down the side yard and make that in the
Yeah,
back.
they just need to put it in the back. Just like right now, if I converted my garage to additional living space, the requirement is, where's your 2-car parking gonna be? It can be in the back.
On the street, as long as it's not snowing.
But on the street is accessory, not required. Same with your driveway, that's an accessory parking pad, not required. So that was the change in the parking, and then again, definition was, we have to remove the words unrelated. I mean,
Well, that's what I was thinking. That's the whole purpose of where I was headed with my conversations, unrelated.
yeah. So right now, we're adding 2 words up to for people or, and then removing unrelated as required by the House bill. But then again, those 2 have already been removed, so we're just making it formalizing here and within our ordinance. Because I can't remove it until you guys say remove it.
Right. Yeah. Okay, hey, great rundown,
So the
Steve.
planning commission, again, that held a public hearing, they voted 6-0 to approve the standards as presented, and the staff says the same.
There was another question, something about the Good Landlord Program.
Uh-huh.
Still in
Does that
play.
fall into this?
That's your rental license.
Okay.
Okay, other questions,
they have-
comments?
No, it's not, you don't have to be part of the Good Landlord Program.
But I think there's a financial benefit to do
There
so.
is-
That's what I was thinking. If you're a part of
And-
it, it's, your
It's
fees are
much-
cheaper.
It's reduced, yes. And that, again, that fee study will help us. Are we charging what we should be? Should it be more? Should it be less? So if it comes back saying, no, everything has to be reduced, then you'll get the ordinance or resolution to reduce it, or if it needs to be more, then make sure we're covering our costs for each thing.
Okay, great discussion. Other questions, council? Everybody okay? Okay, this is ordinance 21-1. Do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 21-1, consider amendments to the Title 10 zoning regulations, specifically Chapter 17, Table of Use, Tables 17-1, adding internal accessory dwelling units, Chapter 19, off-street parking and reload and loading, adding IDAU parking standards, and Chapter 31, definition amending family. Do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 21-1?
11.
I'm sorry,
21-11.
21-11, sorry.
No, that's okay.
So moved.
Oh, glad you did that. Okay, so I do have a motion then to approve it. Do I have a second?
Second.
I heard Brian say second. Okay, we now
trying to
have a
get-
motion.
He was trying to get it out to start with, but.
Well, I was trying to get the 11 out, and I didn't quite that. This is, in fact, a roll call vote, so we'll ask Morgan to go ahead and call for a roll call.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Councilmember Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect, thank you. Gets us
And
compliant.
just so you know, out of the 9 or 10 cities I've researched, we are the first to now
Well,
do this.
You have till October 1st, and I think some are waiting till October 1st to get it done. So thank you, Steve, getting this all done and wrapped up. Perfect. Okay, council, we have one discussion item. I think, Matt, you're going to discuss.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, City Council. I wanted to have this discussion tonight, primarily because of some proposed changes to the day of service this year. Traditionally, we do it a couple of weeks before September 11th, and the main reason is because they used the Aquatic Center after the event. The people that provided the service got to attend the Aquatic Center that night, and people had a barbecue for them. The reason for the changes this year is there is a little bit of a push to do it multi-city, and so Roy City, I believe Clinton City, Clearfield City, and West Point possibly.
It's West Point and Clinton and Roy.
And so I believe the representative in Roy City is Kelly Taylor that is spearheading this. But the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because if we do change this event, it would be on 9/11, the Aquatic Center would be closed.
And you're gonna propose them to do it on 9/11?
Uh-huh. So it'll be a multi-city event. We feel that it would be beneficial to do one event rather than two mediocre events as well, to just keep the aquatic, and then it's unreasonable to keep the Aquatic Center open as well. So, in order to keep the Aquatic Center open for that just additional week, it would be around $10,000 in heating costs and chlorine costs. And then we also don't have the employee base there. And so I know that Councilmember Jackson received a text message today to be on a committee to spearhead this. The locations and stuff have not been determined yet, but I believe a time of 9 o'clock has been determined, so. Kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. If we wanted to do something with the Aquatic Center, we'd have to let them in maybe a week before, open it up that day, or provide some type of ticket for them at a future day.
Well, and let's.
They go the complex.
Are we dead set on that day?
Yes, the Tri-City effort wants to do this on the 9/11 at 9 o'clock. It'll be in concert with a 5K run early in the morning. There will also be, in the days preceding that, there will be a blood drive requirement and a food drive requirement. And what they're trying to do is trying to get all three cities engaged in that process. And right now, the discussion, the day of service, which would be 9/11 in the morning, is to look at basically doing the rail trail. And they figure between Clinton and Roy, we can take a pretty good swat at the rail trail in terms of making significant improvements and cleaning that rail trail up. So that's the plan. Travis, I've been told a couple of times they're working with you by name.
I've had some conversations with Mr. Taylor as well as Pat Liddell, the local representative in our area.
Perfect. Okay.
Are you still planning on Chiefs doing a 9/11 ceremony that morning?
Yes, we are. There's gonna be multiple things, and Ms. Taylor's gonna be here at next council meeting to present the, Weaver Remembers stuff to the council at that point. But there's gonna be so many things going on all the time, all through the day, and a build-up towards that Saturday as well. So a lot of things happen.
My daughter's getting married that day too, so if anybody wants to come, you can come and join the festivities at the Paul clan.
Uniform, I'll come be their minister.
Hey,
Since, that's not a
So
bad
I was
idea.
asked by the state president of West Clinton, Matt Stake, to come to a meeting this Sunday, that he said it's going to be with, they just wanted a representative of each council, and they have one now from Roy, Clinton, and West Point. And they're going to have a meeting this Sunday at 4.
Perfect.
And so I'll find out more about it.
Yeah,
then, so.
you'll get the details in terms of the plans. I've talked to Matt about it. The council that will be more than likely in need, and Brandon, you'll need to consider this, maybe some resources, specifically some containers for garbage and stuff.
Yeah, and we're planning on doing the same thing with that, is just providing the trucks and the ability to dump
That
the
we
trash
did?
and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are these events meant to be sequential, so the ceremony in the morning, or will they be overlapping, or too many people organizing it?
Overlap, yes. The stuff that we have going on in the city is gonna be pretty steady, but there are gonna be a lot of options for the citizens of Roy and throughout the community to do stuff.
Yeah, particularly with Weber County, because Weber County, I think, is having some centralized things as well. And I think Ms. Taylor will be coming to provide some clarity in terms of what the county's doing. This is kind of a tri-city effort with focus in terms of food, blood, and then cleanup and that 5K. And the game plan with the 5K, I believe, event is to generate some revenue. You'll get some details on that, and provide the revenue to public safety to help them in terms of buying equipment and stuff. So it's kind of this celebration. This is the 20th anniversary of the 9/11, and they really want to kind of do some things in the broader community to make a difference. And Roy is kicked in to help.
Can, while we're discussing the day of service, could we, would the council anyway, be interested in maybe getting a pin, a 20-year anniversary pin that we could present to our police and fire members and have them wear that pin as part of their uniform over the week leading up to the 9/11 event? Would there be any support for that?
I like that idea.
There's that place right in Roy that makes them, right?
Yeah.
Diane, thoughts on that? I think I heard 3 of them say, what are you thinking about?
I was thinking of a challenge coin, but I do like the idea of putting a pin on their uniform.
What do you think?
What is the funding for that, and like what kind of,
Comes out of our budget.
just our general?
No, it just
budget
comes out of the
or-
legislative budget.
legislative
So if the
budget?
council supports Brian's suggestion, then Matt, the council can direct Matt, go ahead, let's make that put together. We'll need to get the quantities of employees in public safety within the city. And then the budget site would be the legislative budget that we've approved for this year. And it would just be money taken out of that budget to support this task.
Yeah, and pins aren't very much.
So, thoughts? Everybody okay with
I think
that
it's a
idea?
Good
I
idea.
like it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe
Matt,
get somebody, whoever's spearheading it, get a
Design it.
proposal and see what it is and bring it back.
Yeah. Someone have to design it.
Well, Matt, looks like we got a tasking then from the council to go ahead and use legislative funds to go ahead and purchase those on behalf of the council. And then with that, we'll issue those to the chiefs. And we'd ask you to consider finding a place on there, to post this 9/11 things. We're not sure exactly what that will be, but I think to the comment that Brian's bringing to the table, at least for this celebration, bad way of putting this event, anniversary.
This memorial.
This will be a good remembrance in
Yeah.
terms of their
needed a homework
contribution to
project
their part
anyway.
of public safety. Okay?
Yeah, I know the lady that works over there at Old Jorgensen's bookstore, Jake Schultz. If anybody knows him, that's his sister that works over there.
What year did he graduate?
Jake Schultz? I don't know.
I wasn't going to say that, but I know she knows their family members by name, but please, go ahead.
91? 91.
It's a good year. It's the year I graduated.
Well, at least when I tell you when I graduate, he says that's the year I was born, so.
Okay. And since you brought up the comment about challenge coins, Council, would you just ponder this idea? We have basically every even year, I think we have one, well, I can't say every one. We had the 75th anniversary challenge coin that was done when we were 75 years since the incorporation. They come back and did an 80-year challenge coin. For 80 years, the Royce City has in fact been incorporated. We're moving very fast towards actually 2037. We're all going to be alive and well in 2037, but that'll be the 100th anniversary of Royce City.
Wow.
And
Gives
by
me
the way,
something to
there
live
is
for.
a
37, 100.
there is a time capsule sitting right outside the door here that was put in, would have been put in roughly 25 years earlier. We were assuming whoever's in the council and the mayor and the city manager at that time, Matt, you were expecting then in that period that you will open that time capsule and see what the members of the city did
retirement
back
celebration.
25 years ago. But Councilmember Joe brought up an interesting point, and it's something I'd ask you to think about as we start to continue moving towards that big anniversary. Challenge coins by which you can recognize members within the city, both employees as well as residents, who are doing some really exceptional contributions to kind of reflect the great city of Roy, where you as a council member can go up there and take a challenge coin and provide that recognition. And if you truly understand the purposes of those coins, they are really a token of simply saying, we appreciate your contribution. That's really what it is. And that's something we hand out to everybody. But surely for those people that you meet, whether they're scouts or whether or not just hard workers, or whether or not people like Tara who walked in here and basically did an incredible thing. I mean, what she did was just incredible. And yet, she got a beautiful resolution. She's going to ride in the parade. We're excited about that. But you could have presented to her also a challenge coin if you had one to present. May I suggest to you to ponder that? Maybe Matt and I and Camille can talk about that. But those challenge coins can very well be a great opportunity. You take a moment of your time as you're working through the city and you're talking to people, when you do recognize achievement, that you fundamentally can says, I'm so impressed with that, let me recognize it with a challenge coin. To employees, to residents, to people who in fact are making a difference. And I think coming from a council member, coming from the senior staff, that could be a really nice thing. Otherwise, to be honest with you, we do great things by saying thank you. And we do that very well. But this makes it just a little different and a little better. Because now they have something they can treasure that simply says, they really did get recognized for their contribution.
I like that.
We'll come back with you on something to consider that needs to be approved by the council, but I appreciate your comment. I think that's something that I think we can do, Joe, to really make a difference to our
I
employees.
really
and
like
stuff.
the challenge coin. We have it in our work and we have it in different functions of what we do. Not in just our work, but who we support, and it's a pretty neat program.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
received from, many different places, so I think we're good.
We'll go ahead and continue that and bring you some ideas to think about as we, again, move closer to our celebration of the 100th anniversary of Royce City. Okay, so our tasking then, and Matt, if you'll work this with the chiefs, we need a total number of public safety employees, okay? All public safety employees. And then let's start with that and then look at a 9/11, okay, kind of brochure and come back to the council with some recommendations. Okay, we have a city manager's report.
Yeah, you have a couple of items tonight. The first really isn't a Roy City issue, more of a secondary water issue. As you know that you might have seen those clam shrimp in the secondary water. I talked to them about that just to relay the message. We've been getting a couple of comments from it. They've had a couple of treatments this year, so they treat them. This one, the clam shrimp doesn't die off during the winter, during cold winters. So it's more about just trying to clean them out. Unfortunately, when they treat them, that's more than likely of when you're gonna see them because they die off and then they go wash out in the filters and stuff. So just wanted to relay that message that they have been treating them. They plan to treat them in the future. So they feel like they have a pretty good system now. So hopefully they can take care of that. Also tonight we've advertised that we are going to be testing the fireworks at the golf course down by the Aquatic Center. The test is going to be anywhere from 9 o'clock to 9:30. So it's not gonna be a real big fireworks show by any means. We're just gonna shoot up a couple of shells to see at what parks that we can see them. So we're gonna have people at different locations to see if West and
When's
the
Yeah,
different
when?
schools tonight.
Tonight? Oh.
So they'll be down there tonight.
Can
to
I
shoot
play?
those off. You're more than welcome to watch.
No, I wanna light the fuse.
That would be up to the chief.
Leroy will be down there. I'll make sure you can get in.
All right.
Okay, and not arrested.
I think you should arrest him.
We're also, you're going to be
been
receiving
in
an email
handcuffs.
as city employees that you're going to, we're moving to an online pay sub system. And so you'll receive an email to set up a password and stuff. So that might be this payroll, it might be the next one, but just know that that's not a spam email. I forget the company that it's coming, NetPay. So that's who it's gonna be coming through. You'll also receive W-2s and different payroll information through that system. Chief Golden's also released a new map. As you know, we're unable to restrict the fireworks beyond where we've already restricted from May 1st. So what's changed on that map is the areas of concern from the fire department. We're awfully dry. These are just gonna be areas that are a little larger and drier, that if you live in those areas, we just ask to be cautious when lighting those fireworks. We can't legally restrict them though. Also, the Brent Taylor Foundation has reached out to us. They're going to be coming this next council meeting on August 3rd, but they've reached out to ask us about putting a an American flag in our Roy City Roy Days Parade. They're looking for volunteers to carry that flag down the route. Depending on how many people they get, they have a flag that 50 people would carry and a flag that 150 people could carry. With that being said, Jenny Taylor is going to be emailing Jody Call a Google Docs document to be able to send her around to people to have them sign up to participate with this.
I can ask my scout troop. They helped in, I don't remember which parade it was, but they carried a similar flag, so.
That'd be excellent. That's what we're gonna ask you is in your church groups and your scout groups and even in your neighborhoods, just let people know about this. 150 people, I think we can get that, but it will be a lot cooler to have the bigger flag there. Something else that might go a little further as well that Jenny says that she's had a lot of success with is if we offer t-shirts or something. We can have the Jenny Taylor Foundation label on it and then also our Roy Days label that we can donate to the people that volunteer for that as well. But it might look kind of cool to have them, when they're carrying the flag, to all have that same t-shirt on. Just like the honor coins and the pins, we could take that out of council contingency. We're looking at about, if it's 150, anywhere from $500 to $700 there. So I would want to get your advice on that or
Thoughts on that, council?
thoughts.
Might be an incentive. I think if they're
think
carrying the
that'd be
flag,
great.
it'd make it look more uniform and
Yeah, I agree.
better. And
I have mixed emotions, because if I have the scouts do it, they're probably gonna wanna be in their uniform, but I understand being all uniform, so.
Well, maybe, do they have a hat?
Huh?
They have a scout hat or something they could wear?
They'd be all right.
Well, I think there's two pieces of this. Matt basically asked, we've taken an active role in terms of helping find people to meet the 150-person requirement to put a 150 flag. And second is that, does the council basically feel like they'd like to have, for our Roy Day Parade, like to have T-shirts made that has an American flag for everyone who basically participates?
And wouldn't there be an age requirement? You don't want a 4-year-old carrying.
Yeah, that's
You'd
very
end up having
true.
them on your
They would have
back.
to be able to carry the flag. Trav knows a little bit about that too. He carried the last one.
That was a big flag a couple of
Yeah,
years
I
ago,
think-
and we had about 150 people
Yes, we
because that
did.
was a massive
Yeah,
flag
that's-
that come out.
Wouldn't you think you'd need to be at least 10 or 12, something like 10 or 12? Or
And they've got to walk from Elks all the way down to 4,000.
You know, I think,
So it's a long way.
I think 10 would be about the minimum age I would
Yeah.
allow. It's, if you have enough people, it's, I mean, the old adage, you know, many hands make for light lifting. So if you have enough people, it's very doable, but if you're panicking at the end, that things can happen.
maybe somebody drive along, give them water once in a while. I don't know.
You'll need to logistically support that, Travis, with your carts. But
Yeah.
10 and above, you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, and like Matt said, let us speak with Mrs. Taylor. Jody, like Matt said, is gonna have a conversation. We'll get her recommendation too. She's done it far more than us.
Yeah.
So let us get her recommendation for an age group, and
Okay.
we'll push it out, whatever number she says.
Yeah, we just need, if we're going to be actively involved in finding you participants, then we're going to need to know that age group. Fair enough? So get it to us as soon as you can. Council, you okay about the city going ahead and acquiring T-shirts?
How do you decide sizes?
I say extra large, and hopefully they fit.
Well,
I think you're right. I think
large.
If you don't know sizes.
Just do large and extra large.
Mhm.
Hey, some people are bigger than extra large.
Okay?
Is a 10-year-old?
Well,
I
it's gonna-
guess 10.
about 10
Were
or
we going to
above.
go up to like 45 or 50 or so?
I'm not let's don't put a cap limit on it, but are you okay with the city go ahead and considering putting T-shirts?
So is there something else that could be done that doesn't need sizing, that would still get the uniformity and stuff like that?
Could
You know,
definitely
Ann
look into
mentioned
that.
a hat, I don't know where that fits in, or
You're
some
kinda
sort of a
running out of
scarf,
time, but-
or,
Yeah, we could look into something else, but, yeah, we can think about it. It is a pretty quick turnaround, I'm thinking, for anything that we do. And I
That's the
know,
reason
like
why we need a
anything else,
decision
things are
tonight
in
if we
short
want to do it or
supply as
not.
well.
Yeah, we need a decision, yes or no, because if you agree to something, scarf, hat, shirt, the city needs to have that, at least that agreement tonight if
Well,
you
do
want to
you
do
know
it.
Kate
what-
Taylor just mentioned shirts. That's what she,
I mean, I would say yes, but
That's
let's
awesome.
email us something. I mean, at least if we agree tonight, but then get us a final conception over email. Because I don't know that, by the time we come back, we wouldn't have time to approve it and get it done. So I think
Yeah.
That's the problem.
bless it now and then.
Just come back with your ideas.
yeah, there was a,
Like I said, we'll talk with her in the next 48 hours, and she also has mentioned that she can sometimes find a group of volunteers that'll help as well, and, you know, so let us talk with her and iron out some of the details, and we can get back to you.
Okay? Okay, but I'm sensing from the conversation, you're okay with the city to go ahead and start looking at something. Okay, that's the agreement we'll go with. We'll use contingency, legislative contingency funds to fund those. Okay, Matt, anything else on the city manager report? You're okay? Okay, council, anything you'd like to see done? Any comments you'd like to make?
Well, I know, Matt, you said they're starting on the Welcome to Roy City finally.
yeah, the engineers, myself, and the individual, Jay, doing the signs, met last week. They start next Monday. Our crews is going to level out the areas and then plot it out, but we got the approvals. We have to have UDOT out there and have flaggers and stuff because it's on the state road.
Right, and that's going to be on the north and south
North
end.
end.
By
south.
Sockles and,
Yep.
yeah, Matt took me down to, we looked at the stones, because once they put them up, then they'll engrave them, and they look really nice, so.
Perfect.
They're about, I think, 9 feet wide by 5 or 6 feet tall or so. I can't remember what the plan said, but.
Okay, perfect. Anything else, council, you'd like to share? Anything you'd like to see done?
Well, a couple of things.
Please.
The mayor and I attended Miss Roy, and that was well attended. And so I'd like to congratulate everybody that was involved with that. It was a lot of work.
And it wasn't too hot, was it? I was over there that day, and I saw they had those big fans that were brought
they
in.
did. And we happened to be sitting right in front of one of them.
Oh.
That worked out great.
So it was like a scene from Twister. But anyway, and then McDonald's on 1900 has started their remodel. And,
Steve?
McDonald's.
If it's interior, I don't ever look at it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. It's an interior change.
Okay.
So anyway, just I thought I would share that.
Okay.
I'm glad they streamed Miss Roy. We were out of town on a family reunion. We watched the whole thing. My daughters and I sat down and watched it. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
You
it's
did a
great
good
program.
job, Mayor.
Yeah, and let me say, a lot of people were involved from the city to help facilitate that. Matt, you're obviously aware, a lot of conversations were taking place, so thank you, everybody, to helping put that together. It's a great event. We had some wonderful talent, okay, very difficult. Probably the hardest job would be is try to be a judge in those. There's just so much talent. But it was a great night, and we're excited for the new Miss Roy. And let me just make a point, if I can. That the real power, now that the pandemic is somewhat behind us, the real power of Miss Roy is really getting involved in city events, things that are taking place in the city. If you think you have something, obviously we'll see some activities in the parade. Hopefully we'll see some activities with some of the events that Roy Days will bring. But if you see other kinds of events that are taking place within Roy, where the Miss Roy team can basically be a part of, attend, perfect. We've had them there for Easter egg hunts. We've had them involved with holiday things. Just anything you think, let's extend an invitation to them to be part of it and come join us. And they can celebrate, obviously, with us, but more importantly, send a clear message to our younger women that they really are contributing to the success of Roy City, and we want them to be part of that. Okay, so let's give them that great opportunity, if you
Is
don't
that the
mind.
first time two sisters, because her sister was Miss Roy at one time. Is that the first time that there's been two, because her sister used to be Miss Roy, her older sister. I don't know if anybody knew that, but I don't know. She used to be a student body president at Roy High, the Hill
But they
girl,
all went
but-
to Roy High, and Ann
Yeah.
knows every one of them.
And so anyway, I just know her sister, so I think it's cool.
I think it's
I'm sure that
perfect.
mom's pretty proud to have two Miss Roys in her family.
Yeah. I do believe the West family had two sisters as well.
Well, mom, I think.
Mom and daughter.
Mom and daughter.
Oh, okay. Well,
Ellen Jeannie Hall's daughter, and then her daughter.
Yeah.
is Miss Roy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
two daughters.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. Anything else, council? Hearing none, then do I have a motion?
Well, I was going to say one thing. Did they turn the water thing down? The water,
splash pad,
like,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, Trav has been out there watching to see what the peak times are, and they've turned it down from 12 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Before 12 o'clock, it seemed like there was one or two people there and running the water, so it's no longer available during that time in the
Okay.
morning. So it is turned down.
And we're good with fountains because it's recycled and moving water doesn't evaporate near as much as standing water. And so everybody that's concerned can rest easy. We're not throwing water away.
And
Good deal.
I have been down. Thank you so much for the benches that you've put in M. Russell. You've got 3 of them installed. They look great. I appreciate that, and I do believe I seen a camera system, looks like in close proximity. Okay. I cannot tell you how important, in my opinion, I can't speak for the rest of the council members, but getting camera systems and electric locks on our restrooms is going to hopefully make a big difference in us having this vandalization issue we've had, not just us, but other cities have been experiencing. We've got to get that in control. The cost of repair is just way too much, and we've got to find a solution, and I think this is a great solution. Yeah, so Travis, let us know how it goes. This is a big thing. I think it's going to make a difference in our city, and I think the council and the public really want to hear from you that says, hey, I'm not out to capture anybody. It's a law enforcement issue, Chief. But this is going to help us to stop it. And if that will do what we need to do, then it's done everything has been
I want to
planned
catch
for.
him.
I would too, but that's not my main objective.
I just want to thank the staff for the staff party they had at the Aquatic Center. I thought that was very nice for everyone, and it was a relaxed event, but there was a lot of planning and preparation for that. So thank you for that, and to all our staff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
great
grandkids
comment.
got to swim about an hour of all the nights for it to be crappy weather.
Did you do a triple off the high dive, Travis?
No, I didn't see him get in the water.
Okay, Travis, with that, we're going to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, Joe,
Second.
and I have Brian give us a second. All in favor?
I
Any opposed? Council, we are adjourned. Thank you. And thank you for attending. Appreciate the input. We got a lot of good things accomplished tonight.